Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. Sandi Nieves spent 21 years on death row in California for a crime that she says she has no recollection of committing. The United States is one of the few remaining countries who carry out executions, and women make up a very small percentage of this. As of November 2024, there were 51 women on death row, accounting for just over 2% of the death row population. The majority of these women have been sentenced to death for killing people who they know, and Sandi was no exception to this. The death penalty is clearly a contentious issue which divides opinion both on whether or not it should ever be an option, and also whether it is in some ways an easier sentence than life in prison. Today we look at the life and crimes of Sandi Nieves. Please add your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you believe that she was legally culpable? What do you think is an appropriate punishment for her crimes? So today we go to Santa Clarita, California, and then go back to 1998. 34-year-old Sandi was living in a small rental house on Cherry Creek Drive. She had told the owners that she would be living there with her husband Fernando and their 3 children. The owners were concerned that the house would not be big enough for a family of 5, but nevertheless agreed to rent it to them. Sandi moved into the house in early 1998 and always paid her rent on time. In reality, she was actually divorced from Fernando, who was her first husband, and had also recently divorced her second husband, David Folden. She moved into the house with her 5 children, 14-year-old David, 12-year-old Nicolette, and Rochelle, who was 11, 7-year-old Christy, and Jacqueline, who was 5. Fernando was the father of the eldest 3 children, whilst the youngest 2 were from her marriage to David. Whilst Fernando was her childhood sweetheart, she met her second husband, David, when he was married to her mother. When David and Sandi's mother, Dolores, divorced, Sandi was actually listed as David's daughter in the court papers. 2 years later, they were married. By the summer of 1998, Sandi had started a new relationship with a man by the name of Scott Volk. Just after midday on the 1st of July 1998, Sandi called 911 and reported that her house was all smoke. When the operator asked if it was still smoking, she replied, "No, not now, it's over." Sandi went on to say that there had been a fire the previous night, and when she woke up, everything was black. When the operator clarified that Sandi had slept through the fire, Sandi replied, "Yeah, I assume." The emergency services were sent, and when they arrived outside Sandi's house at around 1 p.m, it looked as though they were at the wrong address. From the outside, there was nothing to show that there had been a fire at the property. When the paramedics went inside, Sandi and her 14-year-old son, David, were sitting on the sofa. They were both covered in soot. Sandi was asked if there was anyone else in the house, to which she replied, "My kids. How are my kids?" As the paramedics made their way through the house, they saw fire damage to the walls up to about shoulder height. Upon entering the kitchen, they could see 4 young girls lying together on the kitchen floor. They were in their pyjamas, tucked into blankets and their sleeping bags. Nicolette, Rochelle, Christy, and Jacqueline were all dead. When Sandi was told that her daughters had died, she simply replied, "Oh." She showed no emotion. There were no tears. She just looked off into space. It was immediately clear to the authorities that this was no ordinary house fire. The fire had not touched the victims. It appeared that they had died from smoke inhalation. The autopsy and toxicology reports would later confirm this. All of the doors and windows were locked from within. The oven was open and there were towels inside it. There were further towels on top of the oven on one of the burners. In the hallway, it was noted that the smoke detector had been removed from the wall and placed on the ground where it had completely melted. There were petrol stains on the hallway and bedroom carpets that had failed to ignite. In the master bedroom there was a red petrol can. This had clearly been an intentional act to burn the house to the ground, but it would later be described by Sergeant John Ament with the LA County Sheriff's Department as a classic example of an arsonist who does not know what they are doing. Sandi and David were taken to Henry Mayo Newhall Memorial Hospital, where they were treated for smoke inhalation. At the hospital, the detectives questioned Sandi. She was asked if she had any idea what time it was when she woke up and the house was full of smoke. She said that she did not. When asked if she got up to see where the smoke was coming from, she said that she had not. Did you walk into the hallway? No. Did you check on your daughters? No. The detective said that she needed to be honest with them and showed them a picture taken at the house, asking why she did that. She replied that she hadn't and that they could believe whatever they wanted. 48 hours later, Sandi was arrested. She was charged with 4 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and felony arson. She was held without bail in a protected area of the jail due to threats being made against her by other inmates. During her first court appearance on the 13th of July 1998, she declined to state whether she was guilty or innocent and was granted a 2-week continuance before she had to make a plea. On the 28th of July, she pleaded not guilty to the charges against her. As the investigation continued, 2 very different pictures of this woman emerged. The first was of a loving mother who would do anything for her children. The principal at one of the children's schools described Sandi as a very concerned mother, one of the kind you treasure in a school. She really cared about her kids. Friends said that Sandi's children were her everything and her reason for living. Sandi would always be doing things for them and taking them to activities such as piano lessons, Cub Scouts and gymnastics classes. Friends talked of a woman who was a loving mother who had never broken a law in her life and was good at whatever she did. She was a loving stay-at-home mum who kept an immaculate house and thrived on creating a safe and caring family environment. She would later state how she wanted to raise my children in a happy home, in a safe home, in a non-abusive home. I didn't want them to be scared of me like I was scared of my mother. I wanted them to be able to come home to a refuge and always feel safe at home. However, the police investigation would show that Sandi's life was not really how it first appeared. They established that she had broken up with her partner, Scott, shortly before the fire. Sandi had fallen pregnant, and Scott had told her that he did not want to have children. Acting against her Mormon values and religious beliefs, Sandi decided to have a termination, which was completed 4 days before the fire. Her new neighbours said how they rarely saw the children as they were not allowed to play outside. The curtains at the house would usually remain shut, and that the whole family seemed quite withdrawn. On the night of the fire, neighbours remember smelling smoke at around 5 a.m, but were not concerned as the area is known to have frequent brush fire at that time of year. This was 8 hours before Sandi notified the authorities. The neighbours also said that they had their windows open as it was such a hot night, but Sandi claimed that she was cold and had put the oven on for warmth. On the day of the fire, the neighbours also noted that Sandi's van was reversed up against the garage door instead of its usual place in the centre of the driveway. Further police investigation established that on the 1st of July, the day of the fire, she sent letters to all 3 of her exes. The letter to her most recent boyfriend, Scott Volk, said, "Scott, I always loved you. Sorry my love was never good enough for you. You chose to leave and you took my soul. This is not your fault. I allowed it and I asked for it." The letter to David said, "Now you don't have to support any of us. F you are scum." The day after the fire, Sandi and David had been due to attend Riverside County Court in a hearing to reconsider custody of the children as well as division of their shared property. David was seeking greater access to the children, but Sandi said that she feared for their safety because of alleged drug problems and violent behaviour from David's son from a previous marriage. That son, also named David, had twice violated a restraining order forbidding him to come within 300 yards of the younger children. Her ex-husband, David, had also previously adopted the 3 children from Sandi's first marriage, but Sandi believed that he was attempting to annul this adoption in order to reduce his child support payments. It was established that at least 4 separate fires had been started at the home. Both Sandi and her surviving son's clothes were tested for the presence of petrol. Her son's clothes were clean, but Sandi's tested positive. Additionally, Sandi's prints were found on the petrol can in her bedroom. The evening before the fire, Sandi had planned a sleepover party for her children. The house had a kitchen family room combination, so the kids were in there all watching TV and eating popcorn. After various delays, the case went to court in May 2000. The prosecution claimed that it was clear that Sandi had murdered her 4 daughters and had tried to take both her own life and that of her son. They said that she acted out of anger against the men in her life, adding that the defendant found herself alone with 3 failed relationships, 5 children, and no money. Sandi's son, David, testified for the prosecution and stated that he had woken up in the middle of the night with his eyes burning and throat aching from the smoke. He asked his mother if he and his 4 sisters could leave the house, but she told him to stay inside as the fire may have been outside. When he was asked at trial why he didn't leave, he said, "I did what my mother did what she told me to do." He went on to state that he could hear his sisters coughing from the smoke, and one of them asked to go to the bathroom because she was going to be sick. Their mother said no, that she should stay where she was and throw up on the floor. Sandi also told them to breathe into their blankets and pillows. After this, David passed out. When he woke up, his mother was lying next to his sisters on the floor, and he recalled seeing that his sisters had foam around their mouths. Dr. James Ribes, Senior Deputy Medical Examiner with the LA County Coroner's Department, testified, stating that these were not rapid deaths. Because of the brain swelling and the lung damage, the process can take 30 minutes or longer. Scott Volk also testified for the prosecution, stating that Sandi had been planning on ending her own life. On the other hand, Sandi's defence lawyer, Howard Waco, said that she had no plans to end her life and would never intentionally harm her children. He described Sandi as a lost child who endured years of physical and emotional abuse in a dysfunctional home, but she had become a loving mother. She had low self-esteem from her difficult childhood, but he believed that by the time the trial was over, the jury would see that Sandi was as much a victim as her children. Throughout the trial, he provided different, sometimes conflicting theories as to why Sandi should be acquitted. He stated that there was a lack of proof that she had actually started the fire, that she had been in a state similar to sleepwalking and thus was legally unconscious when the fire had been started, and as such was not legally responsible. He also stated that the medications she had been taking for her epilepsy, together with antidepressants and hormonal issues, resulted in a severe change in neurochemistry which made her lack responsibility. He also suggested that someone else, perhaps her son David, had started the fire. It is generally considered a very risky strategy to put the defendant on the stand, but her lawyer wanted to show that she was not legally conscious when the fire started and as such should not be held legally responsible. Sandi broke down in court after testifying about a flashback of holding a lighter in her hand and seeing a blaze. "I was hoping it would be a dream. It scared the hell out of me. I had a flashback of a flash, a lighter, a fire. I don't know what it was. I sit here and wonder every day what happened. I have no idea. She went on to testify that she had no memory of sending the letters, and her lawyer demonstrated how she was planning for the future, shopping for a friend's wedding in August and paying the following month's rent. She was definitely not planning on ending her own life. Sandi stated that she could recall turning on the oven and opening it 4 or 5 inches because her feet were cold, but said that she had turned it off after David complained of the heat. She remembered looking at her children asleep on the kitchen floor, thinking, they're so peaceful. And then the next thing she recalled was waking up in black smoke and telling her children to put their faces in their blankets. She then said that the next morning she got up from where she was lying next to her children to go outside. When asked by the district attorney whether she stepped over the bodies of her children, Sandi replied that, I don't remember stepping over my kids. I don't remember any of it. Throughout the trial, Howard Waco, who was an experienced public defender, clashed repeatedly with the judge and was held in contempt 8 times. On the 10th of August 2000, after a trial lasting nearly 4 months, but with just a day of deliberations, the jury returned their verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Sandi Dawn Nieves, guilty of the crime of murder, 1st degree. At the sentencing hearing, 5 witnesses took the stand to state that Sandi was a loving mother who should not be put to death. They testified that she couldn't have murdered her children if she was in her right mind, as she had loved them so much. Nevertheless, in October 2000, it was ruled that she would receive the death penalty, becoming the 12th woman on death row in California at that time. Her first husband, Fernando, said that the family were very happy with the verdict. Due to this sentence, Sandi was eligible for an automatic appeal. However, these appeals take a long time to work their way through the appellate courts in California. It would take another 22 years before the appeal was actually heard. During this time, Sandi remained living on death row. In June 2021, the California State Court affirmed Sandi's conviction but reversed the penalty phase. Her sentence was overturned due to judicial misconduct after her defense attorney and the judge had repeatedly argued in court in front of the jury. However, her conviction for mass murder remained. Her new sentence was life without the possibility of parole on each of the counts. In a television interview in 2023, Sandi said that her reason for existing was the hope that she would one day speak to her son again, adding that, I want my son and my grandchildren to know that I love them and I would never purposefully ever hurt them in any way, shape or form. Now 60, Sandi remains incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility, Chowchilla, California. This is yet another heartbreaking case of innocent lives lost. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching today's case. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Okay, so let's move on with petty crime. Saloma has sent in her 2 lovely cats. First, we have Hallow. Hallow be thy name. His crimes include lap hogging and meowing if you don't give him enough attention. Then don't be afraid, but there is now a ghost in your house. Meet Ghost. His crimes include stealing boxes from his brother, Hallow be thy name, stealing catnip, and stealing all the treats given to both of them. Thanks, Saloma. And next, Charity from Rockwood in Tennessee is sharing with us Odin, who is a 2-year-old boxer who steals from Charity. Well, steals from Charity's purse, especially her glasses. Odin loves walks and to play ball outside. Charity also says he is a good snuggler at night as well. Thanks again to Saloma and Charity for sending their pets in to me. If you want to send yours in, email me at thecrimereel@gmail.com. Thanks very much for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. Santa Clarita is famous for its Six Flags theme park, and yes, I've been there. Amazing place. And also known for its studio. Some of the previous productions include Santa Clarita Diet, True Lies, Westworld, Goliath, and many, many more. Goodbye.